Mr. Ray Hicks, thank you for joining me.
I appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you coming on. I have done a lot of these conversations and I generally like to take it back to people's childhood. Because as we said before, I guess it gives an indication of who you are and today and the behavior and the mannerisms that you portray. So I did find a quote and I sent it to you yesterday. And I think it'd be a good way to potentially start the conversation and provide some context on who you were and the man you are today, I guess. When meeting a new person and talking life, I always tell them I was fortunate to grow up quick. And that's the truth. I grew up quick. There were lots of events that took place at an early age for me, events that would one day turn me into a monster of a man, or a good man, full of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. A man that can spot danger and a man that knows when it's okay to be dangerous. Most days consist of me thanking God for my childhood and how gracious he was to not just get me through those tough times as a child, but also thrive from those childhood tough times. I love you, Lord. Thank you for another year. Thank you for the breath in my lungs, and thank you for loving me so well. What does it mean to you to hear those words?
Those words are very true for me. Yeah, they should be. I wrote them. I did grow up fast, and it's one of those childhoods that people hear and, they have sorrow and empathy for. And when you make it through hardship, oftentimes you're grateful for it because it's turned you into who you are today. That was my childhood. Grew up in a very, very broken home. My biological father in and out of jail and prison all my life. I can count on one hand the times that I remember seeing him. Last time was about a decade ago. He ended up getting a 25 to life sentence. He got strike 3 for drugs, got caught on conspiracy to use and distribute drugs, and just kind of never saw him.
How old were you when that happened?
8. I was young, but again, it's not that he had been around. For me, my biological father, it would be like me asking you, hey, do you miss your dog Chuckles? You're thinking to yourself, well, I didn't have a dog Chuckles. No, I don't miss Chuckles. That's kind of how it was for me. At least I thought. We oftentimes don't realize the things that are really impacting us or really wounding us in life. And my mother, bless her, love her to death, she did her absolute best. And coming from her childhood, her best, a lot of people wouldn't consider good, but it was her best. She did her best. I think all humans, for the most part, are trying to do their best. And so in her doing her best, she tried to find a man to fill the household. First one was a severe alcoholic. And looking back, he was a good man. He had good values, but when he drank, he drank. I mean, he'd get piss drunk, forget where he's at, piss all over the kitchen. And I'm 5 years old watching this thinking, okay, this is normal. That's not normal. And fast forward, he gets caught for the 3rd time driving while inebriated, gets his license revoked and thrown into jail for a year. And I'm thinking, this is awesome. It's just me, my mom, and my sis, and life's how it's supposed to be. The tribe's back together. The one who spanks me when I do something bad, he's out of the picture. Life's good. And he comes back and they divorce, and my mom finds another man. And then he becomes my stepdad. And he was an alcoholic too, except he was an abusive alcoholic. And while I never got physically abused, I would watch my mother just face black and blue, eyes swollen shut, and that put a lot of fear into me as a young boy. I mean, I was scared shitless. And I remember very distinct times in my childhood, my mom screaming bloody murder. There's yelling and then there's yelling. My mother screaming bloody murder. Raymond called the cops, and I'm sitting there terrified, shaken, too afraid to call the police. And there were times it got so bad that the neighbors would call because it was just so loud. And eventually they had a court-appointed restraining order put on them. And so a judge said, hey, you guys are not good for each other. You guys are a danger to each other. we're going to make it so that you can't see each other. And at this point, things were really bad. There were a few times that I'd lived with different families in the church that I was growing up with, and those times were good. It was a time that I could just kind of relax, not be in survival mode. And then I'd always get taken back and put back in that same environment. And fast forward, I'm 12 years old, 13 years old, getting ready to enter high school. And I run away. I ran away for 3 months. 1 month in, my mom leaves this monster of a man. She comes, lives with me and my buddy's parents. And I'm thinking, this is great. We're getting away from all this chaos. This man seemingly puts his life together, and she goes back to him and takes me with her. And each time that I'd live with a family and get taken back, it was always the same outcome. Hey, you're no longer allowed to speak to them. And for me, it was pretty devastating, because oftentimes it was different mother or father figures, or young boys or girls that I would look at as siblings, and I was being taken from them. And so here's this stable environment, this loving home, and I'm not allowed to be there. Fast forward, things are still bad. As soon as I turned 18, I graduated high school at 17, turned 18 a couple months later, get a full-time job mowing lawns, busting my ass in the hot heat, and things get really bad again. And so I move out. I lived in my car for a little bit. And I called my mentor one day, a man from my church, and I said, Stephen, I'm going to tell you something. You're going to try to help. I'm not going to take it. I just need to vent. He's thinking, what's going on, Ray? And I said, I'm living in my car, and he's livid. I mean, he's pissed. This is a grown man. He's got a wife and kids and a spare bedroom, and, could very easily take me in. And we're going back and forth for an hour. Live with us. No. Live with us. No. And finally he says, what do you have to gain by staying in your car? And there's no good answer to that. Fulfillment of pride, which is fleeting. It might last for a little bit, but then what? You're left with nothing. And so I said, okay, I'll live with you guys. And so I did. And they were so gracious, charged me $200 a month for rent. God, that was a dream. That was a good time. That year that I lived with them for about 1.5 years in total. But the first year, the amount of healing that took place in me, it's almost immeasurable. Watching Katie and Stephen, the husband and wife, how they loved each other. It's like I was being taught the ABCs step by step of, hey, here's how you love a spouse. Here's the actual way. If things get bad or you're mad at each other, you don't hit each other. You don't scream bloody murder. And that sounds like common sense to a lot of folks, but if you never see that or you're not taught that, it's so foreign. And just watching them, how they loved their kids, their 2 little boys. I'm thinking, this is incredible. And at this point, I've done a lot of processing of my childhood. And I come to a point of, I forgive my mom. I forgive the stepdads that I had. I forgive my biological father for not being there. And I have this crazy thought. I'm a Christian. I'm a Bible-believing Christian. I have this crazy thought that God kind of speaks to me and says, hey, it's time. And I'm like, yeah, no, I already forgave him. We're good. And I just felt like he said, that's great, but I want you to ask them for forgiveness. And word for word, I thought to myself, that's not God. No God's asking me to ask them for forgiveness. I didn't do anything. I was a kid. I'm blameless. I'm innocent. And what I felt I needed to ask forgiveness for was the hate in my heart that I had for them. Hate's a strong word, but that was a very real feeling for me. And it wasn't this immediate yes. I didn't, wake up the next day and I'm going to go ask him for forgiveness. It took some real convincing for me to get to that point. And what brought me to that point was asking myself, why are they the way that they are? And so I think back to a time where my mother shared a little bit of her childhood with me. She's a teenager and she's got brothers. And one of her brothers, real piece of work, allows his friends to sexually assault her. And she tells her parents. And her parents look at her and say, "You're lying. He would never do that." And I think to myself, okay, if I'm in her shoes and that happens, how could I turn out any other way? Of course she's the way that she is. She has wounds and trauma and turmoil that she never dealt with. And it took that hate, and I felt really sorry. And I had a lot of empathy for her, and did the same thing with my stepdad. Okay, here's this monster of a man who's put so much fear into me as a young boy, even into adulthood. Why is he the way that he is? And thinking back to stories that he shared with me of his childhood, he had a mentally handicapped brother, and he had a father who was just a very angry man. Well, they lived in the state of Texas, and they would burn their garbage, big, massive burn pit. And one day, he was riding his bicycle around this burn pit, falls in, gets extremely burned. And he's screaming, yelling, crying, runs to his house. And his dad beats the shit out of him for playing near the fire. He's severely burned. Next month, 2 months, he's laying naked in bed. His grandma's taking care of him. He's just a boy. Fast forward, his mom decides to leave his dad. He's 12 years old, and she puts him in a boys' home. I don't want to deal with you. I'm gonna take you to foster care. And I'm thinking this through, and I'm thinking to myself, why would he be anything other than this angry human that he is today? He's never dealt with any of these issues. Of course he's this way. And so again, same scenario. I don't hate you. I feel so sorry for you in my heart. I understand why you are the way that you are. And my dad had no idea what he went through, but he would oftentimes tell me, you remind me so much of your grandfather, his dad. And it was the craziest thing to me, because I would think to myself, he would say it as a compliment. My grandfather was a highly decorated soldier. He's buried in the National Arlington Cemetery, which is you have to have a lot of accomplishments to be buried there in the United States. I'm thinking to myself, if your dad was so great, how did you turn out this way? And I asked him that. And we're talking on the phone, and he says, when I was 5 years old, there was a close family friend that did something to me that shouldn't be done to a kid. And I told somebody, and police got involved. And when they were asking me questions, I felt like I did something wrong, like I was in trouble. And he said, ever since then, I was so angry, and he became prone to violence. And at a very young age was, going into juvie. And then as he becomes adult, he's going into jail and prison. And again, I think to myself, why would you be anything other than what you are? Of course you chased something to numb your pain. Who wouldn't? And all that said, these are rough spark notes of all that went on in my childhood. The ability to look at somebody, even if it feels like they've done something intentionally to hurt me. They probably didn't. Something probably happened. And while it doesn't excuse people's actions, at the minimum, it can help you understand them. And oftentimes for me, it takes that anger and hurt and pain and replaces it with sorrow and empathy of, I understand. I'm not saying it's right, but I understand. And that's a liberating place to be. Because life's hard enough. But if we go through life thinking to ourselves that everybody's out to get us, probably not. They're probably doing their best. Maybe their best sucks, but it's probably still their best for whatever emotional intelligence or bandwidth they have in this moment. That's enough for me. And it's allowed me to give people more grace, because I have a tendency to expect perfection out of myself, and everybody else I expect right below that. Neither of those are achievable. And yeah, that's the spark notes.
Is there a memory that you go back to often as one that stands out that's, you could probably use the word trauma, like a traumatic
Yeah.
memory that
Yeah.
you go back to often, even today?
Yeah.
Comfortable sharing it?
Yeah, I'll share. I was probably 12 years old, maybe 13 years old. It's midnight, 1 a.m., and I just hear, sounds like somebody's punching a wall. Just hear, or throwing chairs or something. There's just some kind of ruckus going on. Somebody let a dresser slip out of their hands and it's tumbling down the stairs. And I'm thinking, what the hell's going on here? And I peek outside my room and I look down the stairs and I see my stepdad naked, and I see him hurled over my mother, and I hear my mother screaming bloody murder, Raymond, call 911. And I start to take steps out of my room, and he points to me, goes, no, go to your room. And I froze. And so what did I do? I went back to my room. As a man, when you see injustice, we like to put ourselves in these tough scenarios mentally, and we think to ourselves, "Well, I'd overcome that obstacle. I would overcome that." And for granted, I'm 12, 13 years old. I'm a boy looking back. I can have empathy for that, but it breaks my heart thinking, okay, here's my mother, a woman I would not just die for, but I'd kill for her. And in that moment, I failed as a man. It's something I look back and still to this day judge myself on harshly. It's also instilled in me this extremely protective nature. I'm a very rational thinker. I'm a very cool, calm, collected man. There's few things that'll set me over the edge, and it has to do with women and children. And so it's looking back, maybe I failed in that moment, and maybe the failure was warranted, maybe not, who knows? But I do know now, as a man, don't ever let me see that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard, man. Full on.
Yeah.
It's hard to see a world in which you thought you failed. And it's one of those things, like I said before, like you're up on that stage, you're doubting yourself. No one else is doubting you. Like what I mean is, like, if you're 12 or 13 and you've got someone like that staring at you, are you okay, or are you accepting now that the 12 or 13-year-old you was just scared? You know, he didn't know how to act in that environment. Is that something that you've accepted, or is it still something you battle with?
I would say I still battle with it. I feel like at times I'm bipolar, because one moment I'll have all the grace in the world for myself, and the next I'm looking in the mirror thinking, you idiot. I got a potty mouth. I try not to show it. But yeah, it's something that I go back and forth on, and that I struggle with. And with that being true, maybe I haven't gotten through it. You know, there's moments where I feel like I'm through it, and I can rationally look at something and have grace and empathy for. And then there's other moments where I'm looking at myself, even my younger self, and looking at him like, you stupid idiot. Do better. Do better. You're supposed to do better. Do it. So, yeah, my mind's a war zone. Oftentimes I think thoughts that I would never say to anybody.
Like?
We'll keep those silent, but they're just self-hate. And it's not even something that I'm against. And I recognize this is dark. I do therapy. I do counseling. I think there's not a single human on this planet that wouldn't benefit from therapy in one form or another. I think all a therapist is somebody who's been trained to listen. Humans suck at listening. If people were good at listening, I don't think therapists would have a job. It's a real thought of mine. And with that, Lost my train of thought.
I've been doing counseling a couple times a month for almost a year now. I had a session this morning and have come to this conclusion. There is not a single person on this planet that wouldn't benefit from counseling. A counsellor, in essence, is a professional listener, both in yesterday's world and today's world. Most people are not good listeners, myself included. To have an unbiased ear help you rationally think through life is a present I wish I had known sooner. This smile is a pretty common occurrence to me these days. And to be honest, I probably could have stopped counselling 5 or so months ago. But it's such a blessing and a gift I cherish in my life. Never knock it till you try it.
How long ago was that?
It's a good question.
A few years ago? I feel like I wrote that forever ago.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I still think that thought holds true. Even when I am down on myself, it's not that I live in that constant state of you're a failure. You know, it might take an hour, might take a week. But a week's a stretch. Like that's a very long period for me to be in that headspace. And I can usually talk myself off that ledge of, you got to have grace for yourself.
What are you saying to yourself when you're talking yourself through it?
You are human. Perfection's a great goal. It's also a cop-out. If you know that's not achievable, setting that as a goal is just stupid. It's not fair. In fact, maybe that's the thing that makes it not a good goal. If you know it's unachievable, then you're truly just setting yourself up for failure. It's great to strive in life. I'm all for that. Strive and accomplish anything and everything that you possibly can. Make it semi-realistic. It can be somewhat unrealistic where, it would take an act of God for this to happen. Perfection's not one of those things. Nobody from the moment they're born, second you shit yourself, you're not going to be perfect. Just reminding myself you're human. Deep breath. It's fine. And on top of that, there's never been anything in my life, good, bad, or ugly, dumb decision, smart decision, or I think it's a dumb decision, but it turns out smart, or I think it's smart, it turns out dumb. There's never been a single instance in my life that I haven't looked back on and at least eventually thought to myself, I'm really glad that it played out that way. Even the most horrendous things and even the dumbest things. I've done some dumb stuff,
And we all.
Yeah.
What is it that makes you have that realization when you look back on a hard time? Because I've been trying to reshape the view of the hard times. Like, I wouldn't say what I was saying before was complaining, but like obviously when you're building something that's so personal to you, there are hard times where it's like, well, it's not growing. And this is a different scenario to what you've been through. But I'm like, I'm molding myself almost into the person that I need to be. These hard times are what's going to make the good times feel so good. I'm not sure if that's your view of it all, but
I would say it's very similar. I think you're spot on. To truly experience joy, you have to experience pain to some level. If life was all sunshine and rainbows, how boring would that be? I think as humans, we oftentimes overlook how fortunate we are to experience every emotion. All of them. The really good ones and the really bad ones. What an incredible experience. Because life is a journey. It's, on top of that, if you want to use metaphors, nothing grows on a mountaintop. It's desolate. It's, there's snow and rock. That's it. Valleys, a ton of greenery, rivers, flowers, birds, bees, animals. It's stunning in the valley. It doesn't feel that way. And then we finally make it to the top and it's this huge accomplishment and it feels good. Great. Soak it in. But just know nothing grows there.
Do you think you'll ever learn to be kinder to yourself?
That's a daily prayer of mine. Sometimes I'm good at it. A lot more times I'm not. But that's something that I spoke with my good friend Dr. Kiltz today about this actually. And it's something he was challenging me to do. And, I said, well, easier said than done. And he said, easy said, easy done. I'm thinking, Doc, you're a quack. Like it's, but I can appreciate that perspective. And so just in the last, 10 hours, that's something that I've said to myself probably 2 dozen times. Easy said, easy done. Because I always say easier said than done. Easy said, easy done. And I think the things we think can really shape our reality, because perspective's everything, A horrible circumstance, somebody else could walk through my childhood and be a completely different human because everything happened to them. Didn't happen for them, it happened to them, and they're a victim.
I think what you said before, you said things that would have turned me into a monster or a man or a good man. I think that's exactly what you mean by that.
It is.
I think you said in the speech, you said, I've done everything in my life that I can to do what I think is a representation of a good man.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming that's what it stems from.
I would say you're spot on with that. Yeah.
You also said in another podcast that you had a fear of working 2 part-time jobs to make ends meet, and that your fear of not driving or aspiring towards something, that was your ultimate fear.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that whole childhood trauma, I guess, that fear has stemmed from that.
Likely. And to give context on working 2 part-time jobs, if you work 2 part-time jobs, there's nothing wrong with that.
Of course.
I always say, whatever you do, be great at it. I don't care what it is. I don't care if you're a bus driver or a garbage man or a professional athlete or whatever, social media. Just be really good at it. Doesn't matter. Just be good at it. And coming from a very secure career, a very goal-oriented career that I worked back in my home state, Washington State, to, okay, I'm going to make this big leap into the unknown. I pray to God I don't fall flat on my face and have to, serve coffee and be a bartender just to pay my bills. Because that's not what I want to do. And on top of that, I wasn't going to school. I wasn't trying to start a business. I didn't have no real end goal. And so if that's just what I was doing just to survive, to me, that sounds like a nightmare. And so nothing wrong with it. For some folks, that is their goal. For me, I look at that and I go, God, no.
Yeah. No, I think it's, context related as well, for sure. I mean, the situation you were in at the time. Would you have any desire, and I remember you saying in your speech that your mum still doesn't speak to you much today. Why is that?
Yeah, I've actually had this conversation with her, and for her, it stems from guilt.
Serious?
Yeah. She's not blind. She's not ignorant, nor is she dumb. She's a smart, wonderful woman who looks at her kids' upbringings and sees that there were flaws within that. And she harbors a lot of guilt from that. And so her son reaches out, and it's just too ashamed to respond. And even in knowing that, we all have wounds. For me, abandonment wounds are a big one, from absent father to experiencing good father figures being taken away from them. Mother constantly choosing what I deem to be bad men over her well-being and mine. There's this big voice in my head that, hey, you're not worthy of love. Your own mom didn't want you. Why would anybody else want you? It's like the one person that's supposed to want you no matter what. She didn't. Why would anybody in their right mind want you? But it's, that's something I battle to this day, is having the empathy for that she's just hurting. She's got her wounds she hasn't dealt with. But at the same time, shoot, maybe I am unlovable. Maybe I'm not good enough. It's tough.
Does it hurt when she doesn't respond?
Sometimes. It used to hurt a lot more.
You got a tattoo of her, don't you?
I do. I got a mom tat. And funny enough, I really do love my mother to death. And same with my father. I wouldn't be in this world without either of them.
10 years since you've seen him, yeah?
Yeah, 2015. Yeah, but I got this tattoo, this mom tattoo. My buddy back home is a tattoo artist, and every Friday the 13th, he does these $25 tats, and it's just the ones that he's drawn on this specific sheet. And I saw that tattoo, and I thought to myself, that would be a sick sleeve filler. So I got that, I don't know, 9 years ago. I've had one tattoo since. It's not even on my arm. I do not have a sleeve. I've got 2 tattoos on this arm. You know? Yeah.
I found this photo of him, your father.
Yep. That's my dad. I got screwed on the skin color. I've always wanted to be a little darker, a little naturally dark.
The caption was, "Get to see my dad this weekend for the first time in 8 years." And that was on September the 3rd, 2015. So I'm assuming that was the
last time. Yeah.
Would you reach out, or if you reach out today, like, how would you deal with it?
Believe it or not, we actually talk fairly frequently.
Okay.
I talk to him more than I talk to my mom. Part of that is I send him money, and that used to be a pain point for me. And it was
why?
I just had this thought in my head of, this isn't how it's supposed to be. You know, here's this kid. You know, in my childhood, oftentimes it felt like I was taking care of those around me. I was taking care of adults. It's not how it's supposed to be. And we idolize how things are supposed to be, and when it doesn't look like that, we become so hurt by it. And in sending him money at 18 years old, I'm thinking to myself, this isn't how it's supposed to be. Well, I saw this Kevin Hart documentary, of all things. And he's talking about his dad, who, drug addict, absent in his upbringing. And obviously Kevin Hart's a multi-millionaire now. And he takes care of his dad. And his why behind doing so is that, well, he's my dad. Whether he was there or not, good or bad, I wouldn't be here without him. And in hearing another man say that, I internalized that, you know what, that's enough of a reason. I'm fortunate enough to pay my bills and have a little bit extra. Why not?
Do you feel as though you have something to prove? Is that a consequence, I guess, of what you've gone through?
Yeah.
To who?
That's a great question. Validation's a big thing for me. Words of affirmation. And it's such an interesting dichotomy, because most of the times I don't even believe him. You could affirm me, and I think to myself, he's just saying shit. He doesn't mean it. But the approval, I don't know if I can pinpoint one person. I think I want everybody's approval. And maybe I need to get my own approval first. I don't know. These are deep. Fire my counselor. You can take over. You're asking some hard-hitting questions.
I like to do that.
You're good at it.
Because I have that feeling as well. And when you when you strip it back, it's almost like you're trying to prove something to yourself, that you are who you say you are.
Yeah.
Chris Williamson has a good quote. He said, no, this is actually Alex Hormozy. He said, build a stack of undeniable proof that you are who you say you are. And I guess everything that I'm doing in my life, similar to what you said before, I'm doing everything to become the man that I am destined to be almost, is a representation of who I say I am. I'm not sure if that resonates with you in any way at all, but I feel like the actions that I do today are a representation of who I want to become. And I'm not proving it to anyone, but I am proving it to myself.
That's powerful. Do you truly feel that you're proving it to yourself?
I think it was only during recent times that it's been flipped on that. It's like I'm trying to prove it to myself.
Okay.
Do I feel? I feel like I do. Yeah, I feel like I am, because this whole thing that I've done, you know, if I take a day off, nothing happens.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've been hustling for a year and a half to, you know, do this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
You know? And it's easy
Hmm.
because there's a deeper purpose behind it.
In getting to know you, something to give you just something to look forward to. We've had, you know, multiple talks on this that I don't love social media. I don't love really any aspect of it other than impacting people's lives. That's great. That's the reason that I continue to do it. But even in starting, it was never my goal. I didn't think to myself, "Ooh, I'm going to grow some page." I didn't care. Happiest times in life when I delete social media. I have this platform. I have multiple platforms that have grown what some would consider a significant following. And it's cool. There's no true joy or accomplishment feeling in that for me. You, without a doubt, will have it someday too. And I look at you and I go, that's a man that's worthy of it. That's a man that deserves it. You know, I got lucky. That, you know, I'm not terribly ugly. I got an okay voice. You know, I'm just talking to a camera like I'd talk to a buddy, and for whatever reason, it resonates with folks. Cool. But you, in striving to do great things with this, when that comes to fruition, whatever your definition of greatness is for this, how good that'll feel.
Like
it won't just be a whatever thing. Yeah, that's special.
You said before the best times are when you deleted social media. You also said in another conversation, some of the hard times were the best that you've ever had. What do you think were, and I know you've given a handful of hard times, but is there, because I know you've mentioned a few other conversations, the suicidal ideations and everything. Was that all around 18 when that all happened, or was it something that you felt from a young age?
Some of my externally hardest chapters in life. So something's happened in my childhood, something's happening with a girl, whatever. Heartbroken, you know, career's not working out. I feel like I'm in limbo. Those were some of my happiest times. And on the flip side, there's been times where I, you know, felt like I was crushing it. I've got a best physique I've ever had. I'm making good money. I've got wonderful friends. Each buddy better than the last. They're all better than me. Pretty girlfriend. Everything externally is what I think it should be. And I'm miserable. I don't want to be here. I'd be content if I drove off the side of the road. Depression's a finicky thing because it's not just sadness, you know, because if it was, then the bad times, those would suck, and the good times, those would be really good. But for me, oftentimes it's the opposite. And I think why I thrive so much when life's hard, it's, I first heard Jordan Peterson share this, and it's probably been around much longer than he has, but, you know, hard times create hard men, and hard men create good times, and good times create soft men, and soft men create hard times. And I think that's true for a society, but I think for humans on an individual level, oftentimes they can find that true themselves. And for me, that's always been the case. When life's really shitty, I turn into this person that nobody can stop. You're heartbroken, or work's falling apart, or mom doesn't talk to you, and well, I'm going to prove everybody wrong, and I'm going to show them why I'm so great and why they should have bet on me after all. And I do everything that I'm supposed to do. I wake up early. I work out. I stay late at the office. I'm eating clean. I'm firing on all cylinders. Nothing. Not a brick wall, not Mike Tyson, not a semi-truck. Nothing can stop me. I'll run through it. And in doing that, enough times, life gets really good. And then I get content and complacent, and okay, life's peachy, and okay, I got the girl, I got the money, I got the friends, and then things start to fall apart because I wasn't who I was in getting me here. And then life gets hard again, and it's a cycle I've seen repeat probably 3 or 4 times in my life.
How do you balance Is there a middle ground between when you're going 100 miles per hour? Is there like a, the Ray that people just like, you're at dinner and you're smiling and all that sort of stuff? Because I'm very much like that. When the blinkers are on, there's no middle ground. There's no social things, like I'm just full on, let's go.
Yeah. I think balance is ideal. I think if somebody can achieve that, do that, I think that'll lead to a much healthier life.
Do you think you have it?
No.
You think you ever will?
I think I pray a lot for that, but even now, I find myself in times of getting complacent and times of beating myself up, and it's still a cycle. I think I've made that cycle smaller to where, the extreme example, I'm 315 pounds, lose weight all the way down to 212 pounds, got life to be really good, just embracing the suck. I'm living my dream, gain the weight all the way back to 295 pounds. Okay, life sucks again. Lose it all the way down to 205 pounds through the carnivore diet. And then now, to be fair, at my leanest, most aesthetic physique, it's not sustainable. It's not fun. It's not, So for me, a comfortable weight is about 220. And that's about what I'm sitting at now. That's me working out regularly. That's me eating strict carnivore for the most part, but then also, that ice cream does look pretty good. I'm gonna have a bowl, or I'll have a piece of pizza. Who cares? All that said, it's maybe the balance for me is making those cycles smaller. 80-20 is a great theory to me, and I think if somebody can do that, that sounds lovely and marvelous. I'd say do it. I'd rather successfully be an 80-20 person, but to this date, I've never been that person.
Yeah. Since Saturday, I took a good long hard look at myself, and I was like, I am using, and I think you've said in another conversation, using sugar as like a dopamine hit. And I've just cut out honey and fruit and everything. And I woke up yesterday, and whether it's a placebo or not, my pants, the day before, were like considerably less. They felt less tight. And I was like, I'm not sure if this is like, something in my head, but I was like, wow, like I'm so in the zone right now, And I think you said on the third day, like you just felt skinny.
Yeah.
Like that's what I felt like.
Yeah. You're not carrying around a bunch of excess water weight. Yeah. You're not bloated. You're not, for me, knee pain was a big thing, but you feel good. You feel lethal. You feel like a man ought to feel.
And because you restrict so much, so like I've restricted every cheat meal that I've had over the years, so that when I get the opportunity to eat a heap of fruit or a heap of honey, a lot goes down. I've got my mum, she's got these dates. I cover them in honey, and I was literally driving to a butcher the other day near mum's. I knew she wasn't home. So went home, had like 8 dates with honey on them because I knew that it was there. And I was just like, and then I walk out and I feel like shit and hate myself for doing it, but it's a bit of fun.
It's tough. I after my first full year of carnivore, strict. I didn't cheat once. I just meat, eggs, and seafood. That's all I did. I didn't cheat whatsoever. I didn't experiment with fruit and veggies and honey. And in that month, I had 4 jars of honey. 3 of those jars were the first week. I'm not kidding.
Impressive. We're very similar. We would be deadly housemates, man.
We'd be on just fat.
Oh my God.
You eating honey tonight?
Yeah. Steak and honey. Be unreal. But yeah. Okay, sorry, keep going. I disrupted you there.
No, it's that the dopamine that sugar gives you, and I'm not even a sugar hater. I don't care what somebody eats. I think a lot of people would feel really good on carnivore, even if it was just for a period of time, and added foods back in, whatever. I'm indifferent. I always say you could eat rocks and dog poo for the rest of your life, and if that makes you happy, great. That doesn't impact me. I'm gonna sleep just as good regardless.
You've said that a lot. I've heard it a few times.
But sugar, the joy that sugar gives you, again, not a bad thing. And I eat sugar every once in a while now. for me, it's always like a little bit too much joy because I grew up as that being a source of comfort. In a life of chaos, I know ice cream is going to make me happy in this exact moment every single time. And with not much happiness, well, let's make sure I get a lot of happiness here. And I overindulge.
Very similar. Very similar. On September the 17th, 2019, this is what you wrote. Balance. Business professional or college student, friend of many or a ghost to all. I've been all of the above and have failed and learned from the lack of balance since starting college in 2018. I started school full-time whilst working a full-time job in the professional world. Academically, I did quite well, if I may. However, it was at the expense of my mental health and the sacrifice of spending time with valued loved ones of mine. Mentally, I was the rockiest I'd ever been. Constant highs and lows, 3 to 4 hours of sleep, coffee to make me function during the day, alcohol to make me sleep at night. Jump to winter quarter of 2018, I gained my mental health back as well as my social life. All it cost me was my grades. I did so awful in school to the point of being so nauseous and having to talk with mentors regarding how poorly I was performing. Fast forward to this quarter, my discipline is present. I've allocated more time for myself. I've elected to not do school full time, and I'm wiser from past failures. Stay tuned to see how I do.
You just unlocked a memory that I haven't thought about. Fun fact, never finished college. I did a year and a half. The company that I worked for was putting me through college because they had a clear career path set ahead of me. And I was working full time. I'd wake up at 4 a.m. I would work out. I'd be in the office by 7:30. I'd be done by 4:30. First college class at 5, and that would last till 9 p.m. And in between ending my work day and heading off to college classes, night college, I'm exhausted, very tired. I've physically and mentally exerted myself all day. And so what do? I drink 2 quad shot Americanos. So 2 drinks, each with 4 shots of espresso in them. And then I'm wired, running on fumes. Okay, I need to go to sleep. I would sprint a mile and I would take 2-3 shots of vodka. Knockout. Alarm goes off. Seems like minutes later. All right, time to wake up, do it all over again. I performed so well in school. I think I had a 4.0 that semester. Or maybe that, yeah, probably semester, maybe the year. I don't know. But I felt crazy. Like mentally, truly, I felt like, God, if a fly landed on my shoulder, I'm going to punch everybody. Like I truly felt like a ticking time bomb.
Yeah, so crazy in a bad way.
Extremely bad.
Yeah.
It was not a healthy form. Physically, it looked great. It was not a healthy version of Ray, and mentally speaking. And that semester ends, got a month off from school, and I'm thinking to myself, there's no way in hell I can keep doing that. Yeah. And so that pendulum swing the other direction. All right, I'm going to make more time for me and do the things that I want to do and hang out with friends. And I failed my accounting class, my accounting and microeconomics. My job is accounting. That's what I did. I was an accounts payable manager. I managed large mechanical contracting firms' AP. So I spent their money. Each week, each month, I spent millions of their dollars paying off, things that you finance. And I failed my accounting class. That's not a good look. And funny enough, next semester, find that balance just to end up dropping out of college and moving to Nashville, Tennessee. For me, that was, I think college can be very beneficial. I think we definitely live in a different world today where college may not be as important as it once was. I think college now is important for one of 2 paths. First path being you're a doctor, a teacher, a lawyer. You have some kind of profession where you can't do it without a degree. go get the degree. The other path is you're a child that hasn't grown up. And college, I think, can be a good learning ground for a kid to become an adult. And I was already that. And so just came to that realization that, I'm kind of wasting my time here.
How long was that period?
A year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah.
3 or 4 hours of sleep.
Oh, that period is probably 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like I've been around a few people with like this all in mindset, but it's got me thinking like, is there a word that you could put to what that mindset is? Is it because I think you said before it's a blessing and a curse. Would you see it as a good thing if used correctly?
Probably. I lost my train of thought earlier in this podcast, but I just remembered what I was getting at.
Sorry, I'm taking it deep here, I know. So.
No, this is great. I believe that discipline is greater than motivation. In fact, I wouldn't just say that's a belief. I would say factually that's correct. Discipline will outperform motivation. Motivation is great. If you have motivation, use it. It's an awesome fuel source. It's like rocket fuel. The only problem is it doesn't last. It's not always fun. Even with social media and enjoying the editing and recording and putting out content, you enjoy it now. There's going to come a day where it sucks. And for you, I doubt it'll last long. You'll get that joy back quickly. But at some point, it's going to suck. It's like training for a sport or, bodybuilding. And eventually you reach that sucky point. Discipline works when motivation stops. For me, what's allowed me to be disciplined in life, and I'm not somebody that's consistently disciplined. When I'm disciplined, I'm disciplined. And when I'm not, I'm really not. It goes back to that self-hatred. And I look at that and I go, gosh, this isn't healthy. There's a better way to do this. But at the same time, it works for me. Again, it's not healthy, but I know that, okay, when I get enough self-hatred, I know it's rocket fuel. It pushes me to whatever limit that I need to go. And so that's something I go back and that's something my therapist, she pisses me off sometimes. That's something she tries to continually work on in me, but I don't know how else to describe it other than I know it's not healthy, but at the same time, I know it's effective. And so should somebody use that? Probably not. If they did, would it work? In my experience, yes.
I've got this in bold. I went through every single post of yours and you wrote, don't expect to be motivated every day to get out there and make things happen. You won't be. Don't count on motivation, count on discipline. A few weeks later, I think you said a post, there's a certain light that can only be noticed in the dark as well. I look at what you've gone through and all the quotes and all the mindset stuff, and I see a man that understands himself. I don't know if you see that, but I see a man that is incredibly reflective and deep thinking.
That means a lot to me. I agree with half your thoughts here.
Why is that?
I'm very introspective. I'm a very deep thinker, and that is a blessing and a curse. Something else I say often, I wish I was dumber than Box Rocks. I wish I was ignorant. I wish just ditzy.
Why?
Ignorance is bliss. That's a common saying. It's true. The things we're not aware of, the awfulness in this world, it's great. And we become aware and all of a sudden, we experience the ugliness of it. The part that I look at and I go, golly, you think that? I feel like every day I wake up, I understand myself and life a little bit less.
What stems from that? Or why do you say that? You understand yourself a little bit less.
Yeah. You learn something in life. Whatever. Take college, for example. you finish your first year of college, you think you're super smart, then you start the next year and you're dumb all over again. Yeah, you're gaining knowledge, and yes, big picture, you're becoming smarter and more aware. I feel, though, the more I learn, the more I become aware, the more I recognize, wow, I really don't know anything. And especially not myself. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. But there's like a lot to unpack with it as well. You know, what are you striving for at the moment then?
Currently, I'm working on getting that discipline back, particularly regarding social media. So as much as I have a distaste for it, I look at it as God's given me this gift. I want to steward it well. I want to use it well. I haven't been. How do I use it well? And for me, that's just being more consistent with posting. And that's just because I know it's impactful because I get thousands of messages or comments or, of people sharing how it's impacted them. And knowing that okay, each time I post, it has the potential to reach somebody who feels like they're lost in life. And this might be the very thing that inspires them to make a change, and that puts them on a completely different trajectory in life. What a disservice to the world I would be doing by not doing that. And so for me, working on getting that discipline back.
Did we speak about this conversation? Sorry, I'm not sure if we were talking about it with the mics off, but like having people come up to you and saying, I love what you're doing. You've changed my life. Like, what does that do to you as a person when someone says that?
Fills my cup.
Yeah.
So I don't, here, let me put my vice in. I don't just do social media. I do make money from social media. I've been very, very fortunate in that regard, whether it's through, brand deals, companies that I love and, use myself that I just talk about, that pays me, or views from videos that pays me. And I've been extremely blessed in that regard. I don't have to work my current job. I do because I think I wouldn't steward my time well if I just did social media. I think I'd have a lot of free time on my hands. And I think I'd turn into a shitty version of myself. That being said, my actual job, my career, is a mortgage broker. And so I help those that buy houses, I help them get approved for their loan. That's a very rewarding, fulfilling process because it's a very stressful process to buy a house. And in taking that stressful process and dumbing it down and making it as smooth and pain-free as possible for somebody, and treating folks through the lens of, okay, I'm going to prioritize people over profit, you go to bed feeling good about yourself. Because there's a lot of, loan sharks that take advantage of people. I'm not one of them. You feel good about that. And so that's rewarding, that's fulfilling. It's nothing compared to the husband that messages me, hey, my wife and I found your video a year ago, and we've been doing it for the last, 6 months. And these are all the things that have changed. And usually it goes something like this, either all of these things or one of these things. She has had knee pain for the last 12 years. It's just gone. Or her cycle's been irregular since she's had it. And this is the first time that physically and hormonally, she's functioning as just a normal woman. Or her cycles are so much less painful. Or when I come home, I don't feel like I need to kick the dog and scream at my kid. I feel like I can better regulate my emotions. When somebody says something, and those aren't even the best testimonies. The best ones are when somebody has a life-altering ailment or disease, and that gets better or goes away completely. When somebody's life has been so negatively impacted, and in seeing one of my videos, it gave them the courage to try this crazy way of eating, and it's significantly impacted their life, that makes everything else so much just less fulfilling. And so being a mortgage broker, it's fulfilling because you're helping somebody with one of their largest investments they'll likely ever make. Yeah, nothing. Buying a house, I experience those that find healing through the carnivore diet. And I think, gosh, buying a house seems pretty pointless.
You said you like helping people from a young age.
Yeah.
And I just remember that then. Everything you do seems to, there is something in you that you like helping people. Like, it's as simple as that.
I do. And maybe that stems from just feeling a debt in life. I think back to the families that allowed me to live with them as a kid. All my life, I've felt like a burden. And I hate that. I never want to be a burden. I never want to burden anybody. And seeing that these families opened their home to me took me in. And how much comfort and peace, ability to sleep through a night, to let my guard down, not be in fight or flight. Having coaches in sports or mentors or father figures, whatever, looking back on how much they had an impact on me. Even as a kid, I'd go to church, and the second I was a little bit older than the other kids, I would want to help out with the younger kids. And maybe it was just that debt that I felt inside me. Okay, you had your hand out, give somebody else theirs.
Burden's a deep word.
Yeah.
You still feel like a burden? Oh.
I do everything in my power to not be a burden. And that's a flaw. It's not a good thing.
No.
You can offer to help me in some way. And if I have the ability to do it myself, I will say no.
Yeah. Despite all of what you just said, it seems like you surround yourself with some pretty good people.
I've got the best friends in the world. I think to be a great man, you need other great men around you, ideally greater than you. I've always been fortunate to have great men, greater men than I around me. And so each one of my pals, they're all phenomenal. Not just at what they do. They're all ballers at whatever industry they're in. We all do different things. Individually, they're really good at something, whether it's loving their wife, loving their child, loving other people, serving other people, just being generous with their time or finances. They all have some superpower that I don't, or it's at least better than what I can do, and it makes me strive to be more like them.
Do you think they would say that? Do you think because like you said, this self-critical thing, what would you say, or what do you think they would say your superpower is? Like, because I'm just thinking, like, because they're probably thinking that same thing as well. That I don't.
Yeah. Maybe as a giver. I do try to give what I can. And sometimes that's financially. Sometimes that's my time. Sometimes that's my ear. Sometimes that's my 2 cents or what I think is wisdom. I try to give what's needed.
You seem like you'd be a great friend.
Try to be. Got a lot to live up to.
I found a photo of you and your friends.
Uh-oh.
This one. Look at you there, looking pretty thick.
Mighty chunky.
Looking
yeah.
thick. Well, I scrolled to the right. That was actually a video.
Oh, yeah.
That was actually a video. So I was watching you when you were like doing the stuff in the water.
That gathering was for a buddy of mine, Ben Bowman. And he's another one of those men that I'm talking about, that he's just really, really good at things. He's a great man. He's what I look at and go, yeah, that's what men ought to be. Just a strong leader, doesn't take shit. He's really good at loving people, and he's extremely generous. Yeah.
That's what I see when I look at you as well, honestly. But I won't talk to you. Yeah, I know it's probably hard for you to hear. You know what I mean?
What I always resort to is thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I'm not going to, there's no sense in being the person that, oh, no, I'm not, because that robs others of joy. If you want to do something for me, or tell me something, me telling you you're wrong, kind of a dickhead thing to do.
Man, It's imperative to surround yourself with other men greater than you. This Christmas, I'm thankful for the abundance of great men I'm surrounded by daily, many not shown. Your community will always make or break your quality of life. And to be a great man, you must be surrounded by great men. How fortunate I am to get to live the life that I get to live.
Yeah, I think that you could live in a dump, but if you have good community, life can be really, really good. And I think that you could live in Beverly Hills and Los Angeles, California, and be extremely lonely, and life could really suck. And so who you have around you, I think, has a, if not being the number one impactor on your quality of life, it's up there.
Do you feel like you owe something to your future kids? That's a deep question, but to give them the life that perhaps you feel like they deserve.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's probably one of the reasons why it's important to me to pursue being a good man. Not just a good man, but a great man. And not just future kids, but future spouse. You know, my greatest desire in life is to be a husband who loves his wife unconditionally, and a father who loves his kids unconditionally, and provides a life for them that would have only ever been possible in their wildest dreams or imagination. To achieve that, you got to be great in all areas. Not just your job. You can be a great provider and a really shitty father and husband. And you can, emotionally, you could be a great supporter. And let's say you're a passive man. People walk all over you. You have no boundaries, or you're a shitty provider and they continually go without. To be great at all those things, that's one of those things that I look at and go, okay, that's one of those borderline impossible endeavors, but it's achievable.
Why do you think it's impossible?
Borderline impossible. I think to be truly great at something, oftentimes you have to make sacrifices in other areas. And so if you're going to be a great provider, oftentimes and when I say great provider, I mean, you guys get to do whatever you want to do. You don't have to do vacations every other year or even once a year. You can go once a month. You can drive whatever cars you want. You can live in whatever state or country, or you can, there's nothing you can't do. To achieve that, oftentimes you have to sacrifice quality time with family. And, being a stay-at-home dad with a stay-at-home mom, you probably don't do too hot financially. Unless you get lucky with social media, and then you can just do it all from home. But, yeah.
Is that what you're striving for then?
It is, yeah. Yeah, and going back to me working full-time and doing social media as well, acknowledging that, okay, I don't think I'd steward my time well if I just did social media. I think I would fill it with stupid decisions. The day I've got a wife and I have kids, I will just do social media, and we'll have some homestead, and life will be good.
Is that a whole, it comes back to identity as well, because whether anyone that works with me listens to this, probably not. So I'm comfortable to talk about it, but it's like an identity thing. You see yourself as this driven professional, and I'm assuming similar to you 3 years ago, or even 12, 24 months ago, you probably never thought the life you're living now or the future that social media potentially provide you would be an option.
No.
So that comes back to that whole identity piece. 2 years ago, this is all I thought about. This is all I thought about. And then when this other life or this other possibility is exposed and becomes a possibility, you're like, wow, I didn't even know that world existed. I'm not sure, my passion for social media is deep. So I perhaps see it differently to you, but when I get exposed to what's possible, and I'm similar to yourself, really struggle. Like focus is a big struggle for me at the moment because there's like so much going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, do I just stop it all and just go bang, or do I keep juggling? And yeah, it's hard, man.
Yeah. What do you think's the right answer?
It's a good one. It's a good question. I obviously think about it a lot. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm similar to you. Like, I actually enjoy my full-time job as well.
Mm.
It's more just like, if I didn't cut open that steak and film it,
Mm-hmm.
we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. You know?
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't do that first podcast, we'd be having this conversation right now. If I spend the whole week doing social media as opposed to a few hours during the week, then what's possible? That's what keeps me up at night.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard.
Yeah. Good news is the decision for that is something that only you can make. And with that comes freedom. I don't think there's a wrong route to take. You know, there's safety in doing both. There's a sense of urgency in taking that leap. And both routes have fruit. Fruit being, you know, something good that will come from it. And which route gives you a better story and which route gives you better fruit. It's only something you can answer.
What would little Ray think about the life you live today?
Oh. He'd probably ask, we got a hot wife yet? I think he would be proud. Yeah.
Is it hard for you to look back on little Ray? Was he confused? What was he?
He just didn't know life was possible. I remember my first time ever flying on an airplane. Growing up in my small town, I went to Los Angeles, and which isn't some crazy flight or even that far away. But even that experience, I remember thinking to myself, wow, like life goes on in other places. I'm 2 states away, you know, like I'm not on the other side of the world, but it just kind of hit me like, whoa, other people are living life. And then I had a more surreal experience in visiting Nashville, Tennessee, where I live now. Visited for the first time in 2019, in the summer of 2019. And life just seemed so possible. I see all these young, driven, disciplined professionals that are passionate about life, that want to be the best at whatever they're doing. And I'm thinking to myself, this is incredible. My hometown where I grew up, great place to raise a family. A lot of people's end goal was to get married young, get a job out at the nuclear site, and have a house on one of the surrounding hills. And those are good goals. Those are my goals. But to me, that's a goal. I would equate that to me saying, tomorrow I'm going to make it a goal to drink water.
I didn't want to finish your sentence there.
It's a good goal, but I was already going to do that. I'm not striving for anything. So seeing these people that want to be dogs at what they do, they want to be lethal in every aspect, thinking these are my people. And now that's my entire community. That's anybody that I'd kill or die for that's in my circle. They fit that bill. And little Ray, I think he'd be astonished at me being in Australia for this podcast and social media. People want to hear what I have to say. And, okay, so you're still helping out with kids in church? That's cool. I think he'd be proud.
I use the word destined when I was looking at your stuff. Like, you were destined to do something like this. And I say that because you said 948 days ago, I walked into Complete Nutrition, stepped on an in-body scale and weighed 264.1 pounds. Already having lost 50 pounds at this point, that number was exciting to me. The following number was not. I was 31.1% body fat. Today I walked in and stepped on that same scale, weighing 211.9 pounds, having 12.9% body fat. The craziest part, I'm not done yet. There's a handful of other quotes that I could read out, but everything seems to be, and you even said something about like uplifting people as well. Like everything seems to be, this is why I'd like to go back and like analyze people's journey, because everything seems to be pointing towards you doing something like this and impacting people. I don't know if you say it like that, but
I would say that's my hope in life. I think I think everything in my life can be summed up under these two things. And this goes back to my faith. It's love God and love people. And in doing that, I think you can be a great person. And I don't always achieve that. There's times I suck and I don't love people well. And there's times I'm cursing God's name. But those pursuits, I think you can do all right.
How are you at the moment?
I love God. I love people. I think I'm doing okay. Yeah.
It's been a great chat, man.
Dude, this is hands down favorite podcast I've ever had the pleasure of being on. You fed me steak in your home and studio. And then your ability to articulate thought-provoking questions, not cookie-cutter questions. Not questions that everybody else has asked 100 times. And not that that's bad. I'm not dogging on that. But we had a real conversation. This is a talk that, I'd have for 4 hours over coffee with a buddy. It's been a real pleasure.
So you have these style of conversations with friends?
This
is your preference?
Okay. Yeah, we go deep. Yeah.
Is that easy?
It is. Mostly. Yeah.
Why mostly?
I've shared my story countless times, whether motivational speaking at schools or churches or through one-on-ones like this. And I've developed a real knack for doing that to where it's not hard for me to be vulnerable. I know in talking to other people, nobody can relate to Barbie and Ken. So if I sat here and said, hey, yeah, social media is super easy. If you want to have a good social media and you want to make a lot of money, it's super easy. And everything's gone great in my life. And it's just, you'd be sitting here thinking, good for flipping you, happy for you. Can't relate. But anytime I've ever said, hey, I'm really struggling with this, it's always opened a door for somebody to either give me insight on maybe they went through something similar and overcame it. They can give me wisdom on it. Or at minimum, at least just empathize. Makes it worth talking. Because Barbie and Ken, they sure look great. Seems ideal. It's fake.
Do you think it'll ever get easy to talk about?
Being vulnerable?
No, just what you went through.
I would say it is now. It's not something I shy about. Now, I've taken a big break from public speaking. It's been years since I last did it. Not even intentionally, just had other goals and endeavors. But I love it. Because I do know that I have an impactful story. I'm not ignorant to that. I know I've gone through things. And I know that in coming out of those things, that can be inspiring and motivating and show others that, hey, it's possible too. I'm very aware of that. And so talking about that, I love it. That gives somebody the opportunity to look inward on their own life and come to the rational conclusion that, hey, I can make something great of this. That's a win. That's loving people.
Mm.
Yeah.
I just want to commend you, man. Like what you've done and the impact that you've had on people. And you talk about the people that have reached out. I mean, the people that probably haven't are substantial. So for you to do what you've done and to do it in a way that's so personal and just so you, there's no fakeness. And I can tell anyone that's listening to this, you are not fake. Like you are who you are on camera. Like there's no hiding. And I reckon that's why you've gone so well. Because in the world of social media is now like, it's just the highlight reel, you know? You're just pulling out your phone and telling you what works for you. There's nothing in between.
I appreciate that. That means a lot to me.
I found a quote that I thought would be a good way to end it.
Yeah.
And probably one, it's more of, I guess it probably just sums up this whole conversation, to be honest. But I do want to read it out, and I think it'd be a good way to end it and get you back to your hotel and packing for your trip back tomorrow.
I appreciate that.
Life deals us all different types of cards, good, bad, and ugly. Personally, I was dealt a hand somewhere in between bad and ugly. This isn't a sob story, nor is it a pity party. I'm incredibly thankful for my upbringing. It gave me wit, charm, and street smarts, a high emotional intelligence, if you will. The truth is, no matter what kind of cards we're dealt with in life, we're left with a big responsibility. To the people dealt good cards, it's your responsibility to further carry those good cards and pass them down. Hell, you can even further greaten your family name. And to the people who were dealt a less than ideal card, it's not your fault. But if you stay there, it will be. I once heard it put like this: we're all self-made, but only the successful will admit it. Sure, we need God, we need people, and no man is an island. I get that. But I'm a firm believer that at the end of your life, however it turns out, good or bad, it's your fault. Be a good steward of your own cards.
Hearing these old things that I've written, I think to myself, dang, I was wise back then. Me and my sister grew up together till I was about 12 years old. She's 7 years older than I am. Our lives are very different today. And, you know, you could sit and analyze nature versus nurture. We both had hardships in our childhood. Our lives are extremely different today. It holds true that whatever cards you were dealt, and some people are dealt some truly awful cards, that wasn't their fault. But once you become an adult, whether you keep those cards or how you play those cards, it absolutely is. Jocko Willink wrote this book called Extreme Ownership. And he presents this idea that everything in life is my fault. And I have the power to do something about it. In reading that book, gosh, probably 5-6 years ago, it just gave me such a profound understanding of, okay, if I view everything as my fault, and to be fair, that's not even a true statement. Sometimes shit happens that was out of your control. But if you have that perspective that, no, it's my fault, I'm going to take extreme ownership of this. And whether this turns out to be a good thing or a bad thing in the end, it's completely my fault. We always see the rich guy or the, super attractive girl that wants to take ownership for all the good in their life. And we see people with the exact opposite circumstances that, oh, woe is me. Life happened to me. Poor me, I'm a victim. And it's so comical because if people truly fathomed what a victim was, that means you were helpless in a given situation. To me, when I think of being helpless, I think that, God, that's my nightmare. I don't want to be helpless in anything. I don't want to say I'm a victim to anything, let alone life. But it's like we live in this day and age. I don't know what it's like in Australia, but in the States, it's like you get medals or you climb a hierarchy ladder of the more victim you can be, the better. Like whoop-de-flip and do. You're the most victim out of anybody. a true victim in life doesn't wear that with pride. Being a victim is an awful thing. It's not a good thing. And so doing everything in our powers to not be victims of life. Life didn't happen to us. It happened for us. Having that perspective, I think, can be the game changer in whether or not somebody gets crushed by their circumstances, be it childhood or adulthood, or they thrive because of them. And I think having that viewpoint of life didn't happen to me, it happened for me, I think it'll set a lot of people up for success.
There's nothing else I could say to match that. So I think that's a good way to end it, man. I really appreciate your time and doing this. And like I said, hopefully one day when I come and visit, we can look back on this and have a good time about, or a good smile about when we had this chat and enjoyed a steak in my, I don't know, what do you call it, a studio? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. Thank you, man.
I'm excited. I appreciate you.
So good, man.
That was baller. Dude, this is hands down perfect time. My nose just started running again.
Really?
Yeah.
There it is. There it is.
No, I got it. Words mean a lot to me. I don't say things flippantly. If I thought something negative, I just wouldn't share it with you unless I thought it would bear some kind of fruit, like constructive criticism. But I'll never just be a dick to be a dick. I got it unless I'm having like a really bad day. But I meant what I said. This is hands down the best podcast I've ever had the pleasure of being on. And
thank you, man.
You're phenomenal.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate that a lot. Like a lot.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean it.